to introduce myself. My name is Naif Ibrahim. I'm the founding partner and CEO of Ibtechar, the host company of today's roundtable session. On behalf of Ibtechar's team, I would like to welcome all of you for joining us in today's session. It's a really privilege for us. At Ibtechar, since last year, we decided and now want to do one more strategic step in our contribution with the ecosystem as a private sector. So we decided that we want to have this open dialogue through the roundtable sessions. And the main reason of that is to really have the voice of the overall stakeholders, private sector, shared within the community. And that's driven by a strong belief that we have in such an ongoing dialogue will help us to increase our awareness regarding innovation in general and specific verticals under innovation, which by product and default will help our performance, how we're approaching innovation as a society, as a progressive nation. So we run a number of roundtable sessions tackling innovation as a broader spectrum with a certain focus topics, such as localizing emerging technology, looking into the role of innovation labs in fostering knowledge-based economy, all the way till mega national projects and how it could work as a catalyst, fostering innovation in the nation. And our topic today regarding procurement, I think most of organizations and corporates and their agenda approaching technology or approaching innovation, procurement is a crucial activity that they go through. Yet it's not straightforward activity and exercise. That's why in our today's session, I'll be moderating a session. We're having Hayal Ghanem as a program director from Qatar Research Development and Innovation Council as an ecosystem enabler. We have Abdulaziz Almir, head of public partnership from AWS and the GCC as a technology enabler partner. And last but not least, Jose from Hasad Food as a chief strategy officer. From an agriculture company trying to approach innovation through an existing procurement system, plus doubling down on the existing vehicles from QRDI as an open innovation. So I think those speakers will give us a diverse view on the topic and how they are approaching it. Yet, before me clearing the stage for the respectful speakers to come and present their presentations, I felt it's important for us as Ibtechar to share our couple of cents around the topic itself. So in today's conversation, we're talking about procurement and innovation. So basically, it's an equation that has two elements, procurement and innovation. To me, approaching the presentation, I felt it was very important to dismantle those factors and to look into the main principle of each one of them and how do each component work as a standalone component. So approaching procurement, I had to go all the way till the history of procurement, how it started and how it evolved by time. And what does that tell us as people trying to deal with the procurement as an activity? So the first documented procurement activity was documented in history. It went way back in ancient time, during Egypt ancient time. Basically, during the construction of the Great Pyramids, procuring, sourcing materials to build such a Great Pyramids. So that was the first activity of such a procurement, that was the first activity. Moving forward, in the Renaissance era, the procurement became a much more strategic function within nations. During that age, that era, we had two kinds of nations, either a growing nations or a weak nations that get conquered, acquired by a greater nations. So with the greater nations, they used to have the procurement as a centralized function to support the progress and the growth of the nation by sourcing the right materials for the army or the people who will be building, maintaining those conquered, acquired cities. Moving forward, with the Industrial Revolution, by the fact that we had the machine, it just enabled us to have the mass production. So in that specific time zone, or that specific time, the procurement function went from just sourcing material to add efficiency in sourcing volumes and moving volumes. Yet, moving forward to the 20th century, where it's about digital telecommunication, we can see that the procurement became something rigid within organizations. And it became a strategic function within the organization, decides on how the organization is going to move forward. Yet, for a better understanding, I think it's important to dig one step deeper into the procurement process itself. So the procurement process starts with different phases. The initial phase by identifying the needs and the market research, which helps organizations to build their own scope. That leads and enable organizations to identify the right service provider from a technical and commercial perspective, which enables them to go into a contractual engagement. That helps the organization and the vendor to be able to control such a scope by identifying the required scope and the actual deliverables. And it gets closed by payments and closure of such a cycle. The second element of today's presentation is innovation. So as we all know that we are living in a fast-moving world, so basically corporate organizations need to innovate to maintain a competitive edge. Yet, digging deeper into the innovation process in general, it starts with the ideation, which opened the question about the visibility of such an idea, which lead in, okay, can we have a prototype to understand that the impact of such an idea, which lead into testing, validation, understanding the implementation part of it, which help understanding the commercialization side of it, all the way till being able to see a full spectrum of such a new approach within an existing organization. Putting these processes together, so basically procurement is about controlled expectations. Yet innovation is about uncertain expectations. So those two elements, in principle, they didn't go together as the principles. Yet I felt it was very important to put that in actual case in Qatar. How is an existing organization managed to deal with a potential innovative idea using a classical procurement process? So part of our ongoing activity as a company, we've been trying to be open to whatever is the new in the market in terms of project implementation. So we got engaged with one of the existing corporates in Qatar, mainly specialized in operation management. The company wanted to shift a specific operation using labor to do facade cleaning into using robotics into that process. And with that, they developed a scope, and they had a number of buildings, several heights, different texture for the building, and they wanted to test a robotics implementation on such buildings to identify efficiency, speed, and how that will have a commercial impact for them. That scope went out last August in the tendering format. So it went out in August. We had 2 clarification sessions with the client, one including all the vendors, and one was one-to-one clarification session. Through the 2 clarification sessions, the client was challenged by all of us, and either we de-scope the scope itself, so we focus on one building, or we increase the time needed to implement such a new idea. The initial closing date was on the 10th of October, 2022. We submitted our technical and commercial proposal. Post the submission, we got an extension from the client, and they want to extend the evaluation till May 2023. From October till May, we had 5 different emails with 18 different queries from the client trying to justify how can we fulfill the requirements of their procurement vehicle. Method statement, safety analysis, risk analysis, sourcing plan, fabrication plan, mobilization plan, which all of that we can't identify these requirements at this stage because we have not tested the solution on the existing premises. Yet, in the beginning of May, we received another confirmation from the client, and they pushed the deadline till August 2023. If we zoom out, this process took 1 year, yet it's not closed. I don't know how the client is evaluating that process internally, but us as a private sector, I think it's just unrealistic to fulfill a requirement that cannot be suited for such a vehicle to really test a new innovative idea. But I think the major takeaway of such a process, this process has been open for 1 year, which means us as a nation, us as a local market, got delayed in experimenting something new 1 year. And this really affects our growth when it comes to innovation. And by that, this is why I think discussing the procurement and the application of procurement toward innovation is important for our session today. I'm done with my presentation. Thank you, guys. I would like to welcome Hayal Ghanem on the stage.
Thank you, Naif. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you to the Ibtechar team for inviting us and facilitating this session. The topic is near and dear to my heart. Before joining QRDI, I was wearing the entrepreneur hat. I can very much relate to your struggle where there was a client, I had an innovative product, and the client is interested, the whole leadership of that organization were interested in behind testing, validating, and potentially buying that new product. But then when it came to procurement and actually paying for that sampling process, the whole thing stopped. So hopefully with our efforts at QRDI, we can address some of these challenges so that maybe in a few years there is no need for external support for such activities. I will start by introducing our organization, QRDI Council, and the kind of work that leads to our impact on innovation procurement in our ecosystem. QRDI was established in 2018, and our first task was to reflect on the development of research, development, and innovation ecosystem in Qatar, and what are the gaps that exist in the ecosystem, how can we leverage the strengths. Since 2007, the research funding was generously set and put together for R&D activities, and that resulted in very strong academic basis for R&D. We have the Qatar University research, we have the support from Qatar Science and Technology Park for R&D businesses. We have Hamad bin Khalifa University also with research institutes and R&D activities. Our hospitals are also the basis for R&D activities are very strong in those Hamad Hospital and Sidra. All that wealth of R&D activities, talent are all there from the academic side. We also, our analysis shows that we also have very strong industries and an excellent infrastructure. We saw that in our stadiums, in our port, in our airport. We see that in our gas industry. So we do have the strong entities and strong infrastructure, and that is where the purchasing power is in the country. Where we felt we need to realize the value of both of those worlds is, now that we built the foundation for R&D, how can we leverage that into innovation and R&D in industries and in our private and government entities. And to the left side of this screen, you'll see the scientific and academic research institutes where we have the strength and all the talent in R&D. On the right side, you'll see all the entities that do have the purchasing power, and they are very strong entities on their own, delivering value in their sectors. Where we do have a broken link and where we can build bridges is in the translation of research to products, services that are suitable for industry implementation. So this is where QRDI is playing a role today. How do we better link and bridge those activities so that we have a spillover effect from the academic research to businesses, innovative businesses, to to our main industries and government. So we want to incentivize and facilitate early adoption of innovation in our industries. And as a result of that realization, we created one of our flagship programs, which is the Open Innovation Program. Our main client in this program are large local enterprises and government entities, where we support by detailing their challenges or their areas of interest where they're willing to pilot innovation. We detail those, we publish them, market them locally and globally, and then we get the best proposals for their review. We select the best innovation partners in this process and award them piloting funding and supported the implementation of that project. And that is one of the programs, one of the models that we decided to prioritize launching to facilitate leveraging innovation through an alternative process to procurement. Procurement will get you products that are ready in the market, you know their price, they're tested everywhere. Open innovation will get you products that are close to implementation, where you will be the first piloting partner in the process. And we can dive deeper into this program and how it's working so far. Thank you.
Abdulaziz.
Assalamu alaikum. Well, I would like first to thank Naif for thinking highly of me when it comes to innovation. So it's an honor to be with distinguished guests and venture with a subject that's very, I would say, annoying to everybody when it comes to procurement. So just in show of hands, who's basically is a procurement officer in the room here? So we have no procurement officer, so I'm good to speak, freely and feel comfortable, complaining. I think this is what united us and brought us here today. But I think, after we collect our thought, we need to get together and have a plan of how we're gonna work together. And, thank you again for Mrs. Haya and for your enlightening about, QRDI. And without a further ado, I'm bringing today some what we call innovation and procurement that comes in from Amazon Web Services. Okay, I'll be fine. So, driving digital transformation using AWS Marketplace. So, if we speak about Amazon Marketplace, where basically the procurement of or purchase of products and retail products is happening through the Amazon Marketplace. This is the model that we used basically to expand as a company. But with Amazon Web Services, we decided to enable this for our partners, to give them access to sell, exchange, solutions, software, professional services. So speaking about this, okay, it should be fine. So the AWS Marketplace allow me just to tilt this one. So it enabled, customers to innovate and transform, basically buying faster from the marketplace. I'll come into examples and details. We use these softwares to help customers migrate and use cloud services, and also when it comes to control and governance. So a lot of softwares and solutions are purchased, at some point are not being used and not being tracked, and prices are basically not known. So AWS Marketplace provide a benchmark of public pricing per consumption. I'll dive deep into the details when it comes to, optimize at scale. Basically, you will be able to borrow a software, use it, do your project, do your solution, and then return it back if you don't need it. Or you don't have to buy it for a length of 3 years or 4 years. So it offers a broad selection of products. And when it comes to fast procurement, it's basically you as a customer of AWS will be able to choose from the 13,000 ISVs available and pull it, use it, and then return it back or keep it. I'm not able to see that one, but I think it's governance, right? Yeah. Reduce risks. So yes, reducing risk comes in with the ability to make sure the software that I'm buying is worth buying it, rather than going through the hassle of procurement and testing and going and buying that software and end up not using it. And this happens to all of us as consumers. We negotiate rates and end up finding that the software does not do exactly what we aspire to achieve. So this shows in the list of 13,000 I would say ISVs available in multiple regions across the world. And right now, we hit around 330,000 active subscribers of this option of using the AWS Marketplace for softwares. And this is the model, how it works. So you are a buyer here at this side. The marketplace will work as a middleware that will allow the software, and we added to it professional services. So you will be able to have the seller offer you either a public offering, that's per consumption. If you want to do something pre-packaged, some longer, some private discussions or private pricing, you can do that through the channel, or you self-service. You go in directly, pull it, use it, and return it. Okay. When it comes to the benefits, and these are some studies that we were, provided by the reference here. I will be able to share the reference. So it enabled 75% reduction in onboarding efforts. And I would jump into 66% time saving due to procurement efficiencies, which allowed, moving and buying faster, and 100% drop in licensing cost because you are optimizing what you are using. So if you don't use it, just shut it down, return it. And this is the beauty when it comes to saving. I operate for public sector customers, which is public money is very important. So it's easier to go ahead and say, listen, I don't need this software. I'm fine to return it. So how it works, you go into the page. I'll share an example. You find and whatever is suitable for you. You optimize the cost. It will accelerate your go into procurement, and security is embedded when it comes to governance and control. And this is basically, it's AWS, that marketplace where you could just search in whatever exactly in your mind. And the list is growing. And what I noticed recently, our global, partners who are not able to operate in such regions, they are using the marketplace to come to customer closer. It's difficult for a solution provider or a software based in Brazil to have a customer in Doha. They will end up jacking up the prices or going through a reseller or a middleware to execute a deal. Using the AWS Marketplace, it's basically allowed them to put that software available to customer here in Doha. And I'm saying this because I do have an exact example of a software company based out of Brazil. I never thought I would have them coming and saying, we have a customer in Doha. So this shows just the options of the list we have. These are just the symbolic ones divided in DevOps and security and storage, networking, IoT, you name it. Educations, healthcare, financial services. I never know, my presentation is slow. So this is when it comes into specific one, industry-focused one. And at the end of the day, it will optimize by consolidating the billing of the customer to make sure cost is optimized. It gives the customer structured payment terms and utilizing the AWS overall services to bundle and add to what the customer is aspiring to achieve. The easiest thing for customers today, since all of us are a buyer at some point or interested, go into AWS Marketplace, use the free trials. A lot of ISVs, they have these free trials for a month. Test it, use it. And then, if you do have the same license, that you purchased previously, you could also bring your own license and integrate it with this consolidated billing. And it can bill up to a second or monthly or hour, and based on your requirement. At the end, it simplifies the process of procurement and discussion and negotiation with customers. It has this unified, also standard negotiated terms and condition, which is a hassle today for procurement officers, where they end up saying, if I'm going to negotiate with X, I need to have these sort of terms and condition. This would eliminate all of these hassles and would help reduce this amount of wasted effort when it comes to contracting. When it comes to governance, it adds into the, all of the products are managed and evaluated in terms of security and vulnerabilities. It streamlined the vendor relationship. It's automate also the third-party software interaction and also enable the private marketplace for customers. So we do have customers who only want to buy 12 certain products or ISVs or solutions. They don't want the rest. So it will allow a pre-negotiated rates specifically for certain institute. This would be available to be done using the private marketplace. I think with this, I finished my presentation, but I have an example of Wyndham Hotel. They did have a case where they wanted to purchase App Dynamic softwares, and it took them forever, part of your going back and forth. And using the AWS Marketplace, they managed to just get the software easily and much faster, especially dealing with customers and expansion. So with this, I think I have a quote here from them. So it's just referencing, how this managed to let them go to market much faster. I think this is the additional, this is a repetitive, or this is another software. It's Kempress optimizes the workflows, another reference of a software examples. With that, I have these additional quotes, but thank you very much for having me. I think I finished my presentation. I don't want to go into the technicals of that details, but thank you very much for having me.
Next speaker, Jose, please.
Innovation. Just 2 minutes ago, innovation, and just thought in Netflix. My daughter just sent me a message, Papa, we have a very big issue. I was like, 2 minutes, I'm about to start my presentation. What happened? Life, death? No, I cannot access Netflix. I deal with that when I reach home. But I thought in Netflix is amazing. If you remember when before it was TV, you needed to wait to see what was on live being broadcasted. Now we are there with access to all the content on the world almost that keep on recycling. You can select when to watch it, how to watch it, and very affordable. It's amazing how we can change, even to do the same, to do exactly the same, to watch a movie, but how changing the way makes this. Or Amazon. Amazon is amazing. My wife is not going anymore to buy sometimes to the places. They bring it just home, okay? Whatever you want, easier, faster. It's unbelievable how we are changing. It's costing me a lot of money, eh? Anyway, I like to go to brief presentation about myself. Later we will also introduce Hassad. But I just wanted to explain what made me come here, probably. I started in Spain, as you can see from my accent, and when I started, I was a telecoms engineer, okay, which was fulfilling one of my two biggest passions, which is technology and innovation. So I thought, if you want to innovate, you need to learn how to do it well, like the pros. Go to telecommunications, learn about technology. I'm sure that will open you a lot of things to do. So I started my career as a telecommunications engineer, mostly in Europe. At some point, I had the opportunity to come to Middle East around 2006. And I started working in a lot of technology, telecom startups, and projects around the region. And most of them were how to use technology and telecom in order to improve processes and be better. This opened me big time how to approach business, mostly for the technology side. Okay? After many years, I moved to Qatar. I came to Vodafone, of course, in Qatar in order to work in one of the telecommunications leaders. And after some time, I got the opportunity to go to another sector, okay, which is the food and agriculture. And then it comes to my second biggest passion, which is the food, as you can see. So I combine both of them. I can do now innovation, and I can have food. And it was, as you can see for the dates, it was a very interesting time, okay? It was in 2017. Everybody knows what happened in 2017 in Qatar. There was a blockade. There was a blockade, and at that time, there was a big pressure to solve problems, and to solve problems that were not expected. So you need to think, you need to act, and you need to do it fast. And you need to think out of the box. You need to do things differently. And in that sense, there were a lot of procurement. Procurement, not just for a company to purchase these things, but even for the country, which is something that as an entity which is in charge of food security, it's very important. We spend a lot of money from the government, a lot of money from this country, and sometimes it was not the best way to waste it. And why? Because we were following whatever we had in hands, whatever was traditional way of doing. And sometimes we didn't have all the tools, like data. And we made mistakes, and these mistakes can be very difficult to absorb and can be problematic and can have impact in the human lives. Okay? So that's why we need to prepare ourselves in order to be able to be flexible and to accommodate any inconvenience that we can have. And this can be on a day-to-day on your companies or at a national level. Okay? But it was a good opportunity. We learned a lot. And I can say that after some development now in this country, we are at a different level. Okay, I think we have managed ourselves to put in the right track, but still we have a lot ahead. That's why I wanted to start with this brief overview of who I am and what I have been doing until now. I'd like to talk a little more about Hassad. For those ones that you don't know, Hassad is a Qatar Investment Authority company. It's the entity mostly focused on food security for Qatar. So we do both international and local investments. Here we have a lot of operations, and abroad we invest. Okay? As you can see, we have presence in different areas of the world. While in Qatar, we manage certain facilities and strategic entities like central markets, cooperatives that work with our farmers. We have poultry companies. We have dates factory. We have farms for vegetables. We have farms for production of livestock feed. And with all this, we try to cover end-to-end the most critical commodities that can support for the food security stability. I'd like to talk exactly what we did in the last 5 years, which was the big game changer. Okay? After the blockade happened, we were requested to definitely act, and act as quick as possible, and to make big changes. Okay? These are some of the samples that we have been working on. Okay? So for example, in the poultry sector, we were having fresh chicken coming from just the other side of the border, in Saudi mostly, and from one day to the other, you don't have Saudi, you don't have fresh chicken. So we needed to expand quickly to double capacity on our local production. Okay? To do that is not easy, I can tell you. Okay? Dates. Dates is a big tradition and an entity here. From one day to the other, you cannot actually import dates from your bigger source, which is Saudi. So how you do that and how you manage to survive and to continue the same levels of stocks as if nothing has happened. So we manage, and we are still the biggest and sole Qatari producer in Qatar. Vegetables. From one day to the other, the majority of our sources were through land. We were receiving trucks and trucks from the Saudi border, and suddenly there is no land border. So what we do, let's try to produce more, okay? Of course, there were also initiatives to bring from outside, but it's like it can change, and every moment we can bring from Iran, right next door. Iran can have a conflict tomorrow with the United States, no Iran. So we need to increase our resilience, and we need to do it quickly and smartly. Our farm in Shahaniya, for example, was producing around 3,000 metric tons of vegetables for Qatar. I proudly say that last year we managed to reach 9,000. And you'll say, you increase the way of the size of your farm. No, we have reduced it actually. But we are able to produce in less space 3 times more, okay? Which is the only way to do it. Okay? Animal feed, all of you, if you have Google Maps or Google Earth, actually I will ask you to make a zoom to see Qatar, start zoom, and in the middle of Qatar you will find a very strange circles. Okay? This is our farm there. And we are producing tons and tons of alfalfa, grass fodder, and green fodder, which is used for feeding our animals. Okay? It's not a matter of having animals. The animals need to eat, otherwise all your production goes badly. So we managed to increase almost to double the area that we are using. And by the way, we are using without even using groundwater. We are utilizing recycled water. That's the way in which we are probably one of the few farms that will be able to continue if the conditions that, unfortunately, with climate change are happening, we cannot extract unlimitedly water from our ground. So these are the ways in which you could sustain agriculture in these things. And in these terms, of course, we are working with Ashgal for all this. We get that water and we produce tons and tons. These were, by the way, business that were already there. We needed to expand, we needed to change the way in which we were working, but also there were gaps in the market that were there for a long time, and it was difficult to change. So we were tasked also to create new companies, startups. One of them was to provide reliable infrastructure. If you recall, the old central market in Abu Hamur was open. There was just a shade. Even in summer, the auction was done open. You know the weather we have. Probably you remember old times. It was very normal to have food poisoning during summer. Okay? Now it's not that normal. Okay? We managed to create, in record time, good facilities, controlled environment. We didn't sleep in many nights, but we managed to modernize, to put a level of other infrastructures in the country, the central markets. And also we create initiatives to help smaller players. We have around 740 farms in Qatar producing vegetables. 400 of them are less than 1 hectare cultivation area. If you go to watch a football match, that's 1 hectare. So imagine how many small players, a lot of them, they put their money in order to be able to produce, to support Qatar, but they don't have the muscle, they don't have the power, they don't have the basket, the full basket to go and negotiate with Carrefour, Lulus, or other players to sell their products. So we created an umbrella to help them. Let's play smart. So all these things have been done in the last 5 years. in order to stimulate and to change the way that we were before, and that we needed to change in order to face some of the challenges that we have and to come back stronger. So I proudly say that these are one of the things we are doing, and since all this was done, how we did it. The only way we did it, and this is how we think is the only way to do it, is first of all, people management. It's all about the people. Every company, it's all about the people. So you need to create trust, and the only you can do it is by collaboration. When you collaborate with the people is when you get the trust. Second, you need to inspire creativity, okay? We know these environments which are rigid, and they don't promote change and all this. No, you need to, not just to reward, you need to incentivize the way in thinking differently. So recognize dedication, not just achievement, but also dedication, and work with people, not against them. Okay. On the other side, on the business approach, I think we need to rethink all the time. You know how many times I hear the word, this is not possible, okay? For our Irkia farm, the one that generates fodder, is now our biggest company. The first thing I heard is, you need to close it. This will never work. But you need to take always several opinions, because when you understand based on what one decision or one opinion was formed, then you can judge it and you can decide if it's a real one or not. So you need actually to rethink, to change perspective, and to continue believing in possibilities and never give up. Learn and collaborate with experts. Our CEO has something he has always said, that he didn't change much the people, he had only few things. The knowledge was actually there. They just needed to get more engaged. And by getting them engaged and learning and listening from them, we build the majority of the solution. So that's actually something you need. And if you don't have it there, you go outside, like we do with QRDI, for example. Always decide sense, okay? I'm a technology guru, I like a lot, and sometimes I think, wow, this super complex technological solution, it's amazing, but sometimes it's just sense, a process, it may be. That can make a big difference, okay? And work as a team, replan, and always take action, keep on doing, okay? So this is how we have approached all these changes, all these challenges. And I can say that thanks to that, we are now in a much stronger position, and we are supporting this country to be more stable, more reliable, more affordable, okay? After, by the way, all these 5 years working on this, we were requested by the Food Security Committee to be their partners to define the next 7 years of food security. And I think they have adopted also this way of thinking. They say, we could do it as a government alone, but that's not the way. They say, we want to do it with the experts. We want to have a valuable contribution for each one of the key stakeholders that finally create it. And this is how we are building it, with a big teams of experts that we understand, working together, sitting in tables like this, and making it happen, okay? So that's all from my side.
So we'll kick off. Bismillah. So, Haya, Abdulaziz, Jose, thank you for the presentations. So obviously, throughout preparing for the roundtable discussion and the panel discussion, and I had the one-to-one moment with each one of you guys. And honestly, I learned so much out of the topic just by interacting with each one of you. There is so much information that was shared with us through the presentations. And I think there are some important questions that has to be asked and addressed and tackled by you guys. I will start with Jose. I'll kick off with why, but I think your presentation properly addressed why innovation is important for the agriculture and why is it very special for Qatar case as well, through the event that we went through during 2017. So my question to you, how did you approach procuring innovative solution during critical time with the existing procurement process that you had in place?
Very good question. Very good question, thank you. And I remember the first things I faced when we started procuring, especially the new things. I needed to deal with the old-style procurement process. What's the old-style procurement process issues? Usually it's, we want the best, so let's make a call and get the best out of international. And then the other thing is, let's select the cheapest one. Okay? This is a very old way of thinking. So what happened? Different problems we had. When it comes to let's get the best, I found out that we are having infrastructure, which, yes, it may be the best in Amsterdam. We have greenhouses, glass houses that are state-of-the-art, but that they were designed to have like to bring heat inside an area, while outside there is cold. And yes, for that they are fantastic, but what happened in summer in Qatar? So we are running AC at a limit, spending a lot of electricity, and still you don't get the right conditions because it's very hot outside and the glass is actually increasing that. So sometimes thinking what's good somewhere else, it's not what it's good for us. And by looking references abroad, etc., this is not enough. Then the cheapest thing, that's another of the critical things. Sometimes you go for the cheapest, but this needs to be very careful, especially with value-added needs. Okay, so we always need to ensure we are selecting the right thing for this. So these were the two biggest challenges I faced. Plus, how to choose the right commodity when you don't have the right data. That was another big problem that we faced. So we started thinking differently. It's like, okay, let's try to learn. Let's try to think before we take action. And this was added as a process in the chain. And we involve much more the business experts, and we put stricter processes on how to select the right solution. I think this was a mind changing. We were coming from a much more different organization.
So, on that specific experience, was it a process issue? Was it skills issue, or both? Kind of. Both actually. That's why we needed to change the process, but also change the way in which we think. The good thing that came with a change of entire culture. We even in our company we decided to create a new culture organization. Same people. As I was saying, there was not much change of people. The same people that were there. We had a gathering, company gathering, just 2-3 months ago, and I remember they decided to give awards for the people that have been in the company more than 10 years, and it was never ending. You know, it was a long set of people. I was thinking, okay, finish, halas? No, there is more. I think 80% of the organization was more than 10 years in the organization, and that's why how you change that. We created a new culture, so we needed to teach the people why we needed to think differently. It was interesting because we called the program Qatar. The new values is Qatar. The Q is for quality. The first A is for achievement. The T is for teamwork. The other A is for accountability. And the last, the R is respect. So we created an entire new culture in which you are not supposed to be just doing, I did my process for procurement, I'm done, I send the email to 3 vendors and I received. No. If the solution is not actually fulfilling with what we need, you have not done your job. Interesting. Hiya, Tamim. You mentioned in Open Innovation as a flagship from QRDI. And I know that there is a story behind selecting the Open Innovation as a vehicle. So why the Open Innovation and how is it important to Qatar?
In the process of looking at the best practices in adopting innovation, we looked at corporates around the world. What are the corporate innovation models that they follow? And we looked at our local companies and what they're familiar with and what would work in our local context. And we benchmarked this in the region and globally. We realized that corporate innovation has one of three models. They either follow build, they build their innovation in-house by their own team and employees. Partner, where they partner with innovators external to the company. Or buy. They acquire a business or acquire a solution or a company to be part of their organization. The closest to what we're familiar with is the partner option, where we wanted to capitalize on our familiarity with purchasing and piloting new solutions that are closer to market and
the nature of doing business.
Exactly, they're closer to the way we're familiar with doing business, and we replaced the procurement process with the open innovation process. The main difference that we are currently trying to implement across all large local enterprises is that you can have a fair and transparent way to work with innovators, but it doesn't have to be through the rigid procurement process. We'll do it through the open innovation process, where you state your challenge. You don't know the solution. You don't know exactly the specifications of that solution, but you're open to proposals. You're open to different innovations that might aid you in thinking outside the box on how to solve this challenge. And even though this is very close to the traditional procurement process, it requires really leadership buy-in and champions to implement this and pilot such a program within their organization and work with innovative solutions that may or may not work. And I'm very, very happy with the partnership we created with Hasad, where they have the leadership buy-in. We have the champions like Jose and his colleagues, where they have their first of all, challenges, opportunities in Hasad, being on a platform where they're inviting innovators. On itself, this is a clear sign of how progressive this company is. So they set the stage for other organizations to also open up and be more innovative and adopt this approach to procuring innovation. It's a combination of finding something that's familiar to our ecosystem, but also building on the success of Hasad in championing innovation through this open innovation model.
Interesting. Abdulaziz, AWS Marketplace. Why AWS? What's so special about it?
Okay, thank you very much for the question. And the AWS Marketplace is basically simplified the buying options and mechanisms for customers. So as I stated in the presentation, customers normally go through a rigid process of scoping, and someone would be writing a scope or a requirement or a specification. Someone else will go and solicit feedback and proposals based on something that was written, and then go into commercials and receive whatever feedback they get from the market. Then they end up using it. During that span, there are a lot of possibilities of scope creep, changes that needed to happen, and requirements are different, new technologies, new options. And unfortunately, if you go back to procurement officers or you want to go and say, you know what, I changed my mind, it doesn't work. Leadership would basically accept to fail rather than going back and say, I made a mistake. And you can imagine the amount of losses that happens. But Mrs. Haya brought something that we follow also when we work with customers, what we call the working backward. So before you go buy in something, we go engage with our customers in working backward workshops. It's a very intensive, detailed, and we try to work with our customers. After we do the working backward workshop, then they will know what they need to buy. We never goes into a customer, say, you need to buy this type of service, XYZ, EC2, database, solution. It doesn't work like this. So we have to do the working backward when it comes to digital transformation, when it comes to going to do major projects. And then you will know exactly what specification you would want. Then, why the AWS Marketplace? Because you can get same requirement fulfilled by multiple options, which you can say, you know what, let me test this product for a month. I like it, it integrates well, then I'll go and buy it. Other than that, cancel it. Let me try the other one. And sometimes, you don't want to go and commit yourself for something you didn't try. So that's why AWS Marketplace.
Interesting. Regarding the working backward exercise, an example that you got a client on such a workshop and they started with X and it ended up, no, they are looking for Y?
I'm not going to do marketing in your event here, but...
it's the process. It's the process.
But for Qatar specifically, we do have a workshop that's running today with a major customer in Qatar. We're doing a working backward workshop with them. And it's ongoing, and it's going to take 2 days. But I'll give you an example, if the time allows me. In 2005, May 6, there was a crash in the stock market, NASDAQ. If everybody remembers, the stock market dropped 2.2 trillion. And then in less than 20 minutes, it picked up again. This is a big money loss. A lot of people made money. A few people, I don't know. So it was a chaos. So what NASDAQ did, they reached out to companies and they wanted a solution. So off the shelf, there are solutions for that. You could use certain product to detect certain, behaviors, anomalies, whatever. What our team decided to offer NASDAQ back then, they said, we'll do the working backward workshop with you. We will analyze your requirement and figure out where you can benefit from even buying. So the good example came out of that one. We worked with them, developed the solution, find what they need to do, but additional to solving a problem, they found an opportunity to monetize these data, where they now are selling it to other.
That was an outcome of the workshop.
Absolutely.
Interesting.
Have they went and only bought something off the shelf? Fine. They would have solved a problem. But what they managed after doing the working backward workshop, they start finding different stream of revenues. They monetized it, they interacted with different stock exchanges, et cetera, et cetera. So it helps also, I would say the buying options, rather than you just say, get me that product.
Interesting. Tamim, looking at the story of open innovation, deciding that this would be the most suitable vehicle for Qatar culture, take us through introducing this vehicle to Qatar. How did that go?
We started with several local clients, and obviously the most innovative would be willing to test, willing to see the next steps and see through the whole process. And maybe Jose can share his side of the experience, but from my side, I can say that without an exception, everyone is approaching it with caution, with a bit of question marks. A lot were skeptical at the beginning of the value, and you see the first turning point is, okay, we'll try. We'll make sure that we have all our internal checks covered, but we'll try this. We'll give it a try with certain types of projects that are challenges. They have significance in their organization, but they're not. We will not give you the most challenging questions and topics. And then we publish the first round, and we get solutions. Solutions start being implemented, and that is the second turning point when we actually have strategic priorities. Can we start working on those? So that to me is the you can tell that these organizations have the entrepreneurial spirit and the innovation interest in their DNA. They have the support, the mechanism, and maybe the highlighting the importance of that strategic importance for the country was perhaps missing at some point. And as soon as the program was structured and marketed as this is something that will add true value to and contribute to our national vision, you can see that there is a lot more excitement about the program and about its tangible impact in the organization. We're very used to research resulting in knowledge.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But then how we utilize this in our industries and in local businesses is relatively new.
Mm.
And all large companies have this their own risk appetite.
Mm.
So when we come with a program that de-risks piloting innovation, and we define clearly where are the checkpoints for continuing with a project and stopping a project, that becomes an easier way and clear path to piloting innovation. And we have our course of action in its success and failure.
Interesting. Before me moving to Jose to get his part of the story, I would love to just touch point on the cultural shift that took place. So what was the perception toward innovation from corporate and industry before trying open innovation?
I think the perception was any project would result in our name being published on a paper, on a research paper. And there was a question mark on the value to the business itself. And we have to show the true impact of innovation through how it's impacting the business, how is it reducing cost, how is it improving business offering, how is it improving talent and talent development and retention, how is it improving health, safety, and the environment for each business. Without speaking that language, without showing the tangible impact of innovation on the business, we would be, unfortunately, talking about how the research will contribute to advancing knowledge, which is historically is where the perception is, that any innovation research project will result in a paper. When in fact, we're talking about the direct impact of business R&D on a business.
Jose, picking on Haya's point of view. So how did you perceive open innovation in the beginning, and how did that impacted Hassad?
Thank you for this, and definitely it was an initiative that since day one, it was an initiative that since day one we love it, because it's very difficult to do innovation, and the biggest problem we usually have at entities is it's money. Okay, so especially the smaller is the player, the most difficult. You cannot innovate, or you can try, and you have said risk. I'm sorry, not everything you try is successful. We dedicated some budget from our own internal sources to try to do things very, very ambitious. And we had collaboration, triple collaboration with 3 companies to create a very high-tech greenhouse. And the objective was to all year to be able to produce crops like tomatoes. And we succeeded in which we managed to produce an important amount of kilos per square meter. But when we run the numbers, we cannot sell those tomatoes at that price. It's impossible, it's very expensive. So we succeeded technically, but we failed from a business perspective. And not everything we do works. And we have tried so many things, and maybe 10 out of 100 are successful, the other 90, and it's so difficult to find organizations that can accept that. Because it's very easy to cover yourself. I selected procurement, I follow the process, I choose the most prestigious company, they deliver, it's not working, it's not my problem, I did the process. No. If you don't take risks, you will not progress. So that's why we need to incentivize this opinion. But you have also some limited resources. That's why when it came this open innovation initiative, I love it. And I also love it because it complements. So we are not researchers, we are not scientists, and they are not businessmen. Okay? So each one contributes what we are good at. Okay? And when we put it together, they may come with not this solution, be careful, environmentally it's not the right thing, or this has certain issues, or this is not the right way of working certain things. And we can tell them yeah, but how to make sure that these copyrights, after, if they disappear, we can ensure business continuity, etc., which is things that unfortunately we have suffered, and we have learned the hard way for our experience. And you cannot ask a researcher to know that. It's impossible. It's just impossible. So that's why sitting in tables like this, we came with challenges that are real, challenges. We have big issues, big challenges as a country, and more that will come. So we need to prioritize them, and we need to say, okay, if we continue doing the same in the same way, don't expect changes. So we need to change the way we work. And these are the platforms that can help, and maybe small changes make a big difference. So we are very happy, and actually I think we are going for round 2 of challenges. It's good because now, since we are in the definition of the new strategy for Qatar at the food security, you cannot imagine the amount of challenges and things that there is no solution for. We have found some, but it's just few. We still have a lot of challenges to do, and for us is the platform we are using to go and later come to initiatives like the Open Innovation to come and say, we have this challenge, it's important, what can we do?
Interesting. Abu Abdullah, looking at the concept of the marketplace, AWS marketplace, and the implementation that took place on corporates with clients here and there, what about the government sector? Is there any kind of adaptation for such a platform on the government sector specifically?
Yes, we do have a good example from our engagement with the government of Bahrain when they chose to go in and using AWS as a cloud service option. So today, as we speak, 85% of government workloads of Bahrain runs on AWS, which happened, I think, in a time span between 4 to 4+. And this wouldn't happen without using the AWS marketplace, because they used to suffer. And at some point, when we started the discussion with them and they started using the cloud services, they said, listen, we realize you have the marketplace, how can we use it? Then we worked with them on their procurement laws and also their tender process. and then they enabled this to be included into or embedded within the procurement process. So they go in and just choose based on the general framework they have. And it enabled them to go ahead and become a very intelligent user of these solutions. So they buy it, they return it, they test it. And it definitely improved, their go-to cloud. And it helped them heavily during also COVID. When they needed a lot of softwares, they don't know which application they use for tracking, data, all of these things. So it enabled them and helped this, I would say, whole digital transformation journey.
How long it took you to convince the government to go full-fledged on the solution?
On cloud procurement?
Yes.
Late nights of discussions.
Late nights
of discussions, yes.
How long? Kind of. Because introducing such an innovative solution, innovative approach to the government is always the hardest activity. So how long it took you?
I wouldn't worry about the time as much as the foundation of that enabled this, which was what we called cloud first policy. So cloud framework agreement, a framework for the general use data policies, which I see also Qatar has been very innovative on this one. So recently Qatar, when they refreshed the cloud first policy and the cloud agreement framework, I would say in terms of policy, Qatar now is advanced on this thing, and it's on us as basically technology people to come and sit and find the right approach to take benefit of this, freedom that was given by the regulatory bodies.
Interesting. Haya, looking into the experience with Hassad, the first patch, and I just heard from Jose that there is second patch, or second iteration of the program itself. So how you evaluate open innovation, the first patch versus the second patch?
I think the sign that I take as a good sign in our ecosystem is the increasing number of interested large local companies in opening up their facilities and businesses and listing areas where they're interested in partnering with innovators. That is increasing. Having repeat interest from large local enterprises like Hassad to post more challenges, that's another sign of the health of our ecosystem. And also looking at the results of the projects that we launched last year, having a good mix of different outcomes of those projects. Some had good match, some did not have a good match, and we learned that we need to go through a traditional procurement process. Some resulted in R&D projects in earlier stages.
The project.
Yes. Some of them are working just fine, and others are resulting in very strategic partnerships between the innovator and the large local enterprise that is realizing the value of this project and saying, we actually want to be partners, not just the procurement arm for this innovation. So from interest in the project, in partnering with innovators, to the different outcomes of the challenges that we launched last year, I think we're building capabilities and collective intelligence in open innovation, and I think that to me is the most exciting part, and that's what I look forward to. Seeing how the program is going to progress next year.
Looking into the cases that you just shared with us, between successful cases, unsuccessful cases, which is the natural of such a new deployment in the market, are we getting a pattern out of those cases? Are we learning something out of those cases?
We as in QRDI, our large local enterprises, and the companies that are currently piloting in Qatar. We're all learning a lot through this process. And the beauty of having this program centralized rather than Hassad having their own open innovation program and other entities having their own is that we're learning fast from everyone's experiences. And we're creating this community of corporate innovators where they can exchange notes and have the best practices that are adapted for our local context.
Jose, through your presentation, you mentioned that today Hassad is playing a bigger role in advising the ecosystem, advising the food security committee. I think you experienced both the traditional procurement process plus the open innovation. In our one-to-one session, you mentioned how Hassad start sharing knowledge of the best practices. Can you elaborate more on that?
Yes, one of the, I like to use cases to showcase this. At the moment, we are working with the government to utilize subsidies, or at least money from the government. I don't like to say subsidies. It's like how to invest in developing the sector. The traditional way was, okay, let's give consumables. Okay, most of what has been happening is let's give consumables. Let's give to the farmers seeds, pesticides, fertilizers. We are addressing now that program, and it takes time. Right? It takes us years to reach this point, and still I think we will need to work much more to develop fully what we believe will really help. But one of the examples is in the procurement process. In the first year, it was a transition. We still use the old procurement process for supporting the farmers in providing them with consumables. So we didn't change anything because we didn't have yet a study to change the entire thing. So we coexisted with the old process. One of the things we saw, for example, is as part of the checklist, one of the items is it should have like 2-3 years of proven utilization in this country. And you say, it's a fair point, but has it been good? Or is this process going to block the opportunity of bringing actually something better? Definitely.
On that note, Abdullah, what do you think the public sector can learn from the private sector and the procurement activity specifically?
I think it's on us as a private sector to share that knowledge, with public sector. And we can do this by, offering a lot of options that would, reduce the burden on the public money, basically, the government, and also by engaging them with, us explaining more. And I think all of technology companies and passionate about innovation, they're always in I would say, excitement to share that knowledge. So we do a lot of these technical exchange meetings, a lot of learnings, but it's an opportunity to make, government runs, much faster than private sector. And I see, a lot of opportunity that we can do in that aspect.
Tamim, how do you see the future of open innovation?
Ideally, yeah. Ideally, this program does not exist in the future. Yes, as a centralized service as government support. I think there is, and this is a perfect program to run in the current state. In the future, I imagine that each organization will have their own strategy team that owns the innovation strategy and owns the implementation of that innovation strategy, whether it's having their own accelerator program, they're having their own tech scouting or their own corporate venture capital fund. In the future, I think each organization will dedicate the resources and go after their own innovation strategy in the way that suits them best way.
Interesting. Very optimistic future. Yeah. And it shows in, okay, now it's about this culture and mindset shift within the corporates to have this within their culture as a corporate to run them by themselves.
It's changing fast. As I said, it's not a lack of interest. It's a way to demonstrate that there is a way to do innovation and de-risk it in your own processes, and you can do it in-house. And hopefully 5, 10 years, this program might be obsolete.
Interesting. So as a quick note, there is a Netflix issue that you need to fix. I believe kids at home, airplane to catch. But before we conclude, I think it's important to open the floor for the audience. If they have any question to be addressed to the speakers, please go ahead. Any question? Abu Ahmed.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Haytham Ali, QRDI Council. It's more of a suggestion rather than a question. This roundtable, thank you for Abu Hamid and to Ibtechar team for setting it up. It's beautiful and it's very nice, and it's engaged the discussion among the community on very important topics. But I want to take this to the next step to see something more tangible that will be disseminated to the community, right? So the output of this beautiful experiences from QRDI, from AWS and Hassad, along with Ibtechar, it will be ideal if we can set it up in a way on a paper, short paper for discussion, for something, and then to engage more people more, and hopefully it will reach the decision maker in a form of a policy recommendation or something of that sort, right? Or a case study at least, just to get people to think more that people are worried about this, people are talking about it, and not just a media campaign and tomorrow in the paper or whatever, something more tangible.
We should publish it on the portal.
Hey, of course, QRDI portal.
Yes. Yeah, we can do that. So to your point, Abu Ahmed, and as I mentioned, we started, if you allow me, we started the roundtable activity as part of Ibtechar strategy just a year ago, and on ending of each roundtable, we learn something and how can we enhance more and more. So one major milestone we got out of the previous roundtable, and post this roundtable, we're going to publish a white paper around it. So that's why it's been recorded. I had the one session with each one of the speakers to draft that in a white paper that could be shared publicly, maybe through the portal. We are very open. But to your point, yes, this is something we are keen to do, and this is our task tomorrow to conclude all of the outcomes of this roundtable. Thank you. Spot on. Any other question? Question, comment, suggestion? All set. Final takeaway? Jose, final takeaway? You have any final takeaway?
Netflix can wait. Besides that takeaway, I think the comment was actually very, very important. I do agree. I think we are all samples, but we need to make sure that this doesn't stay just in few ghettos, or I think this needs to be spread. And I think that the best thing is education. I'm always saying that we have an obligation to the future generations and leaders and to all our teams to ensure that they understand the importance and relevance of this, so that this is getting replicated. And I think we have actually the power, all the cases we have been talking. Unless you have this mentality, you cannot overtake challenges. And we have gone as a country through major challenges, and the only way we manage to succeed is by changing, by innovating, and by doing it smartly and fast. And that's why I think we need to show how to work in this direction to to everybody, all the companies, to stop promoting the risk-averse culture and to ensure that everybody knows that the only way is moving forward. And we have this duty either in educational institutions or by showing the sample to our teams and our co-workers that this is the best way to work.
Abdullah,
I have 3 takeaways.
please go ahead.
So, first one, I'm happy when Haya said this program will demolished at some point, which basically it's not meant to be as a silo. So, in technology, basically, yes, you want to embed this within a standard process, with a norm of practice, which evolved my thought to my second takeaway when one of our leaders is always quoting that there is no compression algorithm for experience. So with experience, everybody is testing and validating. This would be embedded. This would be engraved. Similar to the initial, by the way, procurement, similar to the initial processes that came into any country. Prior to that one, there was, a bit of resistance. But with the, consumer or customers at the end is experiencing that one, they would realize that one. My third takeaway is my passion. So I'll use your podium here to, my passion is for youth. I missed that train, but part of my function is I'm looking always to see, boys and girls engaged in technology. And I think this is an element not to be wasted in Qatar. It's a very young, it has a lot of young population, a lot of opportunities that, this program with Hasad, with other technology, vendors, can translate these into jobs that they can do in. So those are my takeaway, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I've been in the innovation entrepreneurship ecosystem since 2007. And I think it's important to note that I prepared a few notes to convince you that innovation is important. That, in 2007, was critical to highlight. Like, let's set the stage. Innovation is important. So one huge leap that we made is that this is actually a given now. We don't have to talk about this point. So hopefully in the near future, innovation in business is seamless and it's part of our daily practices and DNA. It's not something that we need additional procurement discussion about.
Thank you, Haya. My 2 major takeaways. So the first one, I think, going back to the initial slide I showed regarding the history and how procurement evolved throughout the timeline. It tells us mankind progress is 1-2 steps ahead of the procurement process. But eventually it will change and it will evolve. So I'm very optimistic about that. Although it took 1 year and still we did not close that deal. The second takeaway, and I think this is the beauty of the collaboration between the challenge of the process and the challenge of the skills. People driving, operating procurement might not be able to see how it's hindering the actual progress, where external views and external experience would really challenge that for the greater goods. So those are my 2 takeaways. At this stage, thank you guys. Thank you for accepting an invitation. Thank you for adding value through this roundtable. And I learned so much on a personal note. And I guess also the guest also gained so much knowledge. Thank you everybody. Thank you. يعطيكم العافية.